Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Berkeley. I'm Don Close, your worship associate this morning. To all of you here in person, or near or far on live stream, new to our church, or old-timers, or in between, we welcome you in the fullness of who you are. And today we welcome to our pulpit the Reverend Lucy Bunch as our guest minister. Reverend Lucy is in her 11th year serving the UU Society of Sacramento. She is a 2011 graduate of Starr King School for the Ministry and was ordained in the fall of 2012. Before entering the ministry, she worked at the University of California at Davis as an administrator for 20 years. She has been an active UU since 1989. Later this morning, Reverend Lucy will be speaking to us about her sermon theme, World Religions in the 21st Century, What Matters Most? Looking forward to that. I want to remind you of our memory book near the entrance in the back of the sanctuary. There in the memory book, you can write down a brief mention of a concern, a sorrow, a joy, or a special remembrance with your name if you wish to have it shared in the community here today, read aloud after the time for centering. If you have not already done so, feel free to go back to the book during the early part of the service, and you may light a candle as a witness to what is in your heart. Now please rise in body or spirit in singing our opening song, Bring Many Names, number 23 in the gray hymnal. The words will be on the screen.
Celebrated parable. closer yet than breathing, everlasting home. Hail and Hosanna, great living God.
Good morning. I'm so happy to be with you, and I'm so happy to sing that song with that organ. Wow. We don't have that in Sacramento. As we light our chalice this morning to begin our service, we remind ourselves that our church, your church, occupies land in the Huchiun, the unceded territory of the Chechena-speaking Ohlone people. May we have the humility and courage to do our part to restore what has been broken and the wisdom to live into new solidarity with indigenous communities and with the earth. Let us kindle our flame this morning with these words from the Reverend Sarah Lawal. Out of the flames of fear, we rise with the courage of our deepest convictions to stand for justice, inclusion, and peace. Out of the flames of doubt, we rise to embrace the mystery, the wonder and awe of all there is and all that is yet to be. Out of the flames of hate, we rise to be a force of love, love that celebrates our shared humanity. Out of the flames, we rise.
In saying our covenant, love guides this church. The quest for truth and justice is its common purpose. To give thanks, listen deeply, speak with care, honor our differences, and seek and grant forgiveness. These things we covenant with one another.
Sometimes it's hard to say even one thing true when all eyes are turned aside. They used to talk to you, then people on the street seem to disapprove. So you keep moving away and forget what you wanted to say. Little bird, brush your
I'm going to come down on the floor here to talk to you a little bit and say hi to all the kids that are here. Nice to be here with you today. How many of you have a friend or a family member that's a different religion from you? Quite a few. Let's call them out. Just name some of them. Quite a variety. So now let me see a show of hands of how many of you have talked to these friends or family about their religion. Oh, you guys are doing great. That is really impressive. You know, I think in our world there's a lot of misunderstanding about different religions. I think we make a lot of assumptions, so I'm delighted to see all those hands up. Well, what I want to tell you about this morning is a time of about 130 years ago when a group of people got the idea that it would be good for all the world's religions to come together and talk to each other. And it was called the Parliament of World Religions. It happened in 1893. And I'm particularly proud, and you should be too, that it was a Unitarian minister who was right there, one of the most important people on the planning committee. His name was Jenkin Lloyd Jones. That's a great name, you have to admit, a really great name. And he was the executive secretary. Unitarians at that time were really interested in engaging other religions in the world. And so he became part of the planning team for the Parliament of World Religions, of which there were about 100 presenters who came from all over the world. Now, what do you think some of the goals were of bringing all these different religions together in one place? Anybody have any ideas? Raise your hand so I can, yeah. Yeah, some mutual understanding, right? And particularly misunderstandings. What are some of the other ideas? Yeah. Seeking commonality, yeah. Any other thoughts about goals? There's one way back there. Learn about other religions, right? To sort of build appreciation or misunderstandings, and maybe even enriching your own religion by hearing about another religion, right? Hey, you are pretty good at that, wouldn't you say? Pretty good at it. So who do you think wasn't there? Who didn't come to the Parliament of World Religions? What? The Pope. So who didn't come to the world religions were the religions that felt like, well, they were the right religion. Why would they need to listen to somebody else? So it was a huge success by all measures. Now here's another question for you. How many years was it before they did it again? Way back there. 4, okay. I need another guess. Never. Oh, somewhere between 4 and never. 100 years. It was 100 years. And so now the Parliament of World Religions is a function of the United Nations. Makes a lot of sense. And happens not every year, but at some regular interval. So if that appeals to you, you might look for it and find a way to make your way there, because it's a wonderful experience. But I also think that maybe we can create our own Parliament of World Religions. You've got all these family and friends who practice a different religion than you. So if you're not already engaging and listening, I encourage you to do so. I encourage you to bring curiosity and humility to those conversations and see how you might get to know them better by understanding their religion, and see how you might be enriched by those kinds of conversations. So don't forget about the Parliament of World Religions. And don't forget to stand up, because we're going to sing the kids off to their classes.
Our first reading is from a book by Stephen Prothero titled, God is Not One, the 8 Rival Religions That Run the World and Why Their Differences Matter. Prothero is a professor of religion at Boston University. He wrote, along with other wise leaders such as the Dalai Lama and Gandhi, the Hindu teacher Swami Sivananda writes, quote, the fundamentals or essentials of all religions are the same. Their difference is only in the non-essentials, unquote. This is a lovely sentiment, but it is dangerous, disrespectful, and untrue. For more than a generation, we have followed scholars and sages down the rabbit hole into a fantasy world in which all gods are one. This wishful thinking is motivated in part by an understandable rejection of the exclusivist missionary view that only you and your kind will make it into heaven or paradise. For most of world history, human beings have seen religious rivals as inferior to themselves, practitioners of empty rituals, perpetrators of bogus miracles, purveyors of fanciful myths. The Age of Enlightenment in the 18th century popularized the ideal of religious tolerance, and we are doubtless better for it. But the idea of religious unity is wishful thinking nonetheless, and it has not made the world a safer place. It is time we climbed out of the rabbit hole and back to reality. The world's religious rivals do converge when it comes to ethics, but they diverge sharply on doctrine, ritual, mythology, experience, and law. These differences may not matter to mystics or philosophers of religion, but they matter to ordinary religious people. Muslims do not think that the pilgrimage to Mecca, they call the Hajj, is inessential. In fact, they include it among the 5 pillars of Islam. Catholics do not think that baptism is inessential. In fact, they include it among the 7 sacraments. But religious differences do not just matter to religious practitioners. They have real effects in the real world. People refuse to marry this Muslim or that Hindu because of them. And again, in some cases, religious differences move adherents to fight and to kill. One purpose of the all religions are one mantra is to stop this fighting and this killing. And it is comforting to pretend that the great religions make up one big, happy family. But this sentiment, however well-intentioned, is neither accurate nor ethically responsible. God is not one. Faith in the unity of religions is just that, faith.
Our second reading is from Thich Nhat Hanh, a Vietnamese monk, scholar, and activist, and one of the most beloved Buddhist teachers in the West. He died in January of 22. This reading is from his book, Living Buddha, Living Christ. Buddhism is made of many non-Buddhist elements, including Christian ones. And Christianity is made of many non-Christian elements, including Buddhist ones. We have different roots, traditions, and ways of seeing, but we have the common qualities of love, understanding, and acceptance. For our dialogue to be open, we need to open our hearts, set aside our prejudices, listen deeply, and represent truthfully what we know and understand. And to do this, we need a certain amount of faith. In Buddhism, faith means confidence in our and others' abilities to wake up to our deepest capacity of love and understanding. In Christianity, faith means trust in God, the one who represents love, understanding, dignity, and truth. When we are still looking deeply and touching the source of our true wisdom, we touch the living Buddha and the living Christ in ourselves and in each person we meet. If we can enter the 21st century with this spirit of mutual understanding and acceptance, our children and their children will surely benefit. And now let us rise in body or spirit and sing. What are we singing? What number is it? Oh, they don't need a number. You have that. That's right. We would be one. Rise in body or spirit. I want to bring you a practice from my congregation. You use love words. We have a lot of words. We use a lot of words. And so my congregation has developed a few practices of prayer and centering that are not based on words. And I want to share one of you today. It's a form of embodied prayer. So I'm going to walk you through it. And then after we do it together one time, and as I describe it, we'll do it 3 times in silence. And then after that, we'll have a time of silence to just let it settle into our bodies. And as always, please do this however your body wants to do it. If there's some part that doesn't feel comfortable to you, you find another way or make a different choice. All right? So let's take a deep breath and settle into the space this morning. We're just going to bring our hands up into a prayer pose. Feel our bodies in the seat. Relax our shoulders. Just be present here in this space together. And then we bring our hands down in front of us, offering who we are, just being present recognizing and welcoming our connection to the rest of the world. And then reach out a little farther. Reach out in connection. Reach out with willingness to love, seeing all those in the world that may need our love and care, feeling that offering of love to them and their connection. And then we reach up higher to bring in all the good juju from the universe, the divine love and spirit, all that comes in from that beautiful web of interconnection that we share. And then we bring all that back down into our heart, settling it in, feeding us, feeding our spirit. So now let us do this together in silence 3 times. Blessed be.
Now let us hold in the caring embrace of this community the joys and sorrows, the burdens and inspirations that each of us carry along each of our life's journeys. From the memory book, unnamed anonymous writes, "My boyfriend of 6 and more years ghosted me. It's very hurtful." Wynne writes, hopeful we can protect our seniors and vulnerable citizens from scammers. Beth Jurdy, who came from Iowa, writes, "Yay, Iowa women's basketball." On a more somber note, from my own heart, remember that today, April 7th, marks 6 months since the beginning of the war in Gaza. It's almost impossible to bear the unimaginable suffering that is ongoing. All these joys and sorrows, concerns and special remembrances, spoken aloud or unspoken, but alive in our hearts, may we honor and bear witness.
Last year sometime, a congregant of mine asked me to preach a sermon on what all the world religions have in common. Now that question itself brought to mind the perennial philosophy. Some of you may have heard of that. It's a concept that all religious traditions share one metaphysical truth. That truth is sometimes described as the ground of being, or the divine spirit from which all religious truths spring. Houston Smith, a 20th century religious scholar who wrote a very popular book on world religions, was a proponent of this idea. I know that he was affiliated with this congregation during his time in Berkeley. Smith said, differences in culture, history, geography, collective temperament all make for diverse starting points. But beyond these differences, the same goal beckons. Similarly, Mahatma Gandhi said, belief in one God is the cornerstone of all religions. So it is toward this one God that all religious people are climbing. Some of our greatest religions from Eastern wisdom have a slightly modified version of this idea. They say that rather than seeking the same God it's the ethical goals of religion that are similar. As we heard Thich Nhat Hanh say, we have different roots, traditions, ways of seeing, but we have common qualities of love, understanding, and acceptance. However, religious scholar Stephen Prothero is having none of this. As you heard in the reading that Dawn shared, Prothero said the idea that all religions are the same at their core is a lovely statement, but is dangerous, disrespectful, and untrue. He said that for more than a generation, we have followed scholars and sages down the rabbit hole into a fantasy world in which all gods are one. So how do we parse these differing perspectives? In our globally connected world, religious strife is very real. And a dream of harmony and interconnection is a wonderful aspiration, but so far has not been proven to be sufficient to navigate the challenges of religious difference. So I want to start our exploration this morning by taking a giant step backwards and try to wrap our arms around the similarities and differences of the world religions. And for this, we have to go way back, about 40,000 years. Humans first developed religious ideas in order to make sense of life, of suffering, of death. About 40,000 years ago, humans developed the ability to think abstractly. And with that came music, art, storytelling, ritual, and religion. Myths and religious practices and moral practices help build community and minimize strife. Religion was central to pre-modern culture. Humans formed clans that had their own religious practices, generally based on the cycles of earth, connection to nature, and developing and establishing group norms of behavior. And everyone understood and generally adhered to them. They were a part of everyday life. Urbanization changed all that. For the first time, people with different religious practices came together, and the clan structure was coming apart. This happened about 3,000 years before the Common Era, a time of one of the greatest transformations in human history. Life in the city-state evoked a crisis of meaning as the clan structure gave way to a new emphasis on the individual. And the challenging conditions of life forced these early humans to deal with questions about why was there suffering, or injustice, or evil, or death. You can find answers to these questions in many of the legends and myths that were created by these early civilizations. And it is at the same time in history that the major world religions found their roots in the three centers of ancient civilization: India, China, and the Middle East. And out of the roots that were planted at that time, the world religions that we know today came to fullness. The next greatest shifts for humans began with the dawn of the modern era, beginning in the 16th century, characterized by wide-ranging intellectual, political, and economic change. For religion, an even more significant change came during the Enlightenment period in the late modern era, when science began to dominate and replaced religion as a source of knowledge. Religion was no longer the center of political, social, economic, and religion began to be seen as a matter of individual faith or belief. This culminated in the separation of church and state. The founding fathers used European philosophy to develop the idea. Finally, with globalization, colonialism, and mass migration, we moved into a postmodern period of religion and human culture, a pluralistic world where no one religion dominates. In this era, more and more people choose to disavow religious practice of any kind, and the belief in the unquestioned power of science has been diminished, and we are questioning reality. We are questioning truth. Voices from the margins in our world have contributed to this shift, and those of us in the dominant culture are realizing that things never really were the way that we thought they were. This is the world we live in now, this postmodern era. And there are more ways to be religious than ever, or not. And though there is much less religious warfare than in pre-modern times, we still have a long path of mutual respect and understanding to walk before we achieve the vision of all religions living together harmoniously. So I'm going to change direction now, and I'm going to shift from this linear chronological math of history to frame a little bit on how each major religion differs in their foundational ideas. The three families of religion that emerged from India, Middle East, and China all perceived a different source of truth and a different problem that religion needed to solve. For the East Asian religions, the source of truth was the interconnection of all. The Tao and disharmony was the problem. Religious practice that helped them get back into connection with nature, or for the Taoists with nature, or getting into connection with society for the Confucianists. So for the Chinese origins, their source of truth was the interconnection. And they felt that when you got out of harmony was when the problems started. In South Asia, Hindu practices evolved from the idea that we are all part of one divine spirit, one part of Brahman. But we saw ourselves as separate from this spirit. So the religious problem was suffering and separation. And the solution were various practices that they call yoga, far more complex and broad than the yoga we know in the West. And this yoga would help the soul be freed from the cycles of birth and suffering. Then in the Middle East, monotheism emerged with the single God as the source of meaning and truth. The religious problem was sin and separation from this God. And the solution was following the commandments and building towards the kingdom of God. So what was the end game for these religions? Where did they see us heading? For the monotheistic religions, they share a view that we are moving towards an end time where all the righteous will be united with God. For Eastern religions, their goal is achieving nirvana, connection with the greater spirit. But they believe that it all exists right now, and through our efforts, we can find our way there. So these three roots establish many branches. Hinduism gave birth to Buddhism and Sikhism. Islam and Christianity emerged from Judaism. And as we know in our world today, these religions have many branches, many forms of Christianity, Islam, Hinduism. Throughout history, there has been much religious strife between these groups. You know, Muslims against Hindus, Christians against Muslims, Christians against Jews. Every combo you can think of are fighting each other. Or in many cases, the dominant religion was oppressing the others, such as the Christian treatment of Jews in Europe. But some of the deepest strife among religions is between those that are the most closely related, especially when one considers itself to be the successor to the other, the improvement of the other. Think of the Shiites and the Sunni in Iran, both arising from the same root, or the Catholics and the Protestants in the Middle Ages, or Christians and Muslims, Christians and Jews, all arising from the Abrahamic faith and all seeing themselves as the one true religion that God intended. Religious strife feeds directly from religious fervor. I'm sure you've heard of the idea of exceptionalism. It means that you believe that yours is the one true faith. This idea can lead to thinking that not only is your religion correct, the one that God intended, but that other religions are wrong or perhaps even evil. Now, so far I haven't said anything about indigenous religions, such as the Native American or traditional African or those among the Pacific Islanders or other places in the world. These are the descendants of the early tribal religions that have passed down fundamentally unchanged. Our dominant culture has always labeled and treated these religions as primitive. And yet, as we enter a chaotic time in our world, many people are now turning to this ancient wisdom to navigate our postmodern world. Okay, you still with me? Everybody doing okay so far? All right, I get a thumbs up. So the world turns and we enter this postmodern era. And the world's religions are breaking into factions that represent the needs of their adherents to navigate this interrelated, complex world. There are changes that are happening in similar ways across most religions. So I want to outline some of these main categories. First is the fundamentalists, something in all religions. They reject important aspects of modern culture, and they want to go back to what they perceive as the purity of religion and social order. This is not just a Christian trend. There are fundamentalists in all major religions. Right now in India, there are a group of Hindu nationalists that are trying to take over the country, sort of like the Christian nationalists in our country. Other religious communities are choosing to stay firmly as modernists. They want to accommodate their religious tradition to the social and political realities of modern life, such as choosing to ordain women or LGBTQ clergy. And then there are the postmodern religionists. These folks are fully swimming in the soup of our era, holding on to their core beliefs while striving to orient their practices to our global and shifting reality. These postmodern religionists are learning to tolerate discomfort and learning to live with uncertainty. And of course, the worldwide trauma reinforced all these divisions. So let's come to Unitarian Universalism. Where do we fit in this framework? Well, it depends on who you talk to. Right now, all three of these attitudes are present in our denomination. There's a fundamentalist group among us that wants to take us back to the good old days. Of course, you always ask, for who were they the good old days? And they've even started their own association now. We have people who are comfortable with how we are now. They like our current religious practices and structure, and they don't really want to change very much. And then, of course, there are those who feel the imperative for change, to respond to the turmoil of our times, and to respond to the call for justice and inclusion with full engagement. So as Unitarian Universalists, we are a little microcosm of the current challenges faced by all the world religions. And there is strife among us. So I ask you, if there are challenges within you, how can people of different religious views get along? I'm very inspired by one of the values in our proposed Article 2 revisions that speaks to this very topic. And one of those values is pluralism. Pluralism is the coexistence of a variety of perspectives and ideas, but it's so much more. There's a project at Harvard Divinity School that expanded this definition. They say pluralism is not diversity alone, but the energetic engagement with diversity. Pluralism is not just tolerance, but the active seeking of understanding across lines of difference. In our current configuration, as Unitarian Universalists, we are actually a laboratory for pluralism. We can practice these ideas right here each time we come together, for we have a tremendous variety of beliefs and practices among us. I offer a new member class once a quarter at my congregation, and we do this exercise where everyone lines up according to what their thoughts are about God. So if you're all in about God, you're at that side, and if no way there's no God, you're on that side. And it is amazing to see the diversity along that line. Similarly, every Sunday when we use religious language in a prayer, someone is taking those words in with a sense of homecoming and rapture. And someone, possibly right next to them, is working on their shopping list for the grocery stop after the service that day. How are we doing in engaging with understanding and appreciation of our religious diversity? As UUs, we are also in a relationship with many of the world's religions through our personal study and practice. There are many UU Buddhists, Christians, Jews, Taoists, Hindu, Muslims, pagans, and many others. As UUs, we practice pluralism, keeping our minds open and challenging our assumptions and prejudices. And we do this pretty well, of course, with the exception of Christianity. Because many of us have had negative experiences with Christianity, we tend not to bring an open-hearted spirit to appreciating what the Christian message may offer. We also tend a wee bit to exceptionalism, thinking that our religion is better than anyone else's. And I hope you think that UU is best for you. But I also hope that you're open to understanding that other people's religions can be equally true and meaningful for them. We're a small denomination, but are mighty in vision. We have this chance to model pluralism in our lives and our interaction. I want to read to you the language of the value of pluralism in the Article 2 proposal. It says, we celebrate that we are all sacred beings, diverse in culture, experience, and theology. We covenant to learn from one another in our free and responsible search for truth and meaning. We embrace our differences and commonalities with love, curiosity, and respect. So now I come full circle back to where we began. Do the world religions have more in common than not? Is there a path to peace in our world? I think I'm going to go with the Dalai Lama on this one. I think that all the various religions are infused with love. Love in all its forms, in all its power. Love that can heal, unite, and enrich us, and build connections among all the various religious ideas. But I also want to draw inspiration from the Hindu theology that peace and love are not something that will be coming, but something that's here right now. If we know it, if we believe it, if we live it. May it be so.
We invite you now into the spiritual practice of generosity. It is time for the offering. Instead of passing the plate, you can give electronically by scanning the QR code on the back of your badge, or you can put a cash or check donation into the donation envelope that you'll find in the back of the pew in front of you. Please write your name on it, mark offering plate or pledge, and then put it into the donation box beside the fountain in the atrium as you leave the service. Each week, half of our offering plate is shared with the nonprofit Good Neighbor organization recommended by our Social Justice Council. Thank you so much for practicing generosity with UUCB and with our good neighbors. The good neighbor for this month is Bay Area Outreach and Recreation Program, known as BORP. The mission of BORP is to improve the health, independence, and social integration of people with physical disabilities through sports, fitness, and recreation programs. At BORP, sports and recreation produce a path to greater achievement to which all people should have access. BORP continually strives to make this a reality. Thank you. Please join me in dedicating our offering. We dedicate our offering and ourselves to the mission of this congregation, to create loving community, inspire spiritual growth, and encourage lives of integrity, joy, and service. It's been good to be together today, and thank you for our guest minister, Reverend Bunch. I want to remind you to check out our website, uucb.org, to explore all the things that are available in our congregation. On the homepage in News, you'll find a link to our weekly email newsletter, The Week Ahead, which includes a list of activities, announcements, and contact information. So today I have 4 important announcements. First, are you new to UUCB? Does UUCB feel like it can be your spiritual home? Would you like to take a deeper dive, hearing about this church and about the people here who share your values? If yes, next Sunday, April 14th, at 12:30 p.m., after services, our welcoming and membership team invite you to come to lunch in the fireside room. Come and find out what this community can offer you, to you and your family, and hear others share their journeys of spirituality and humanism. If you have questions, Victoria will be at the welcome table after the service today to answer any questions. Second, General Assembly is happening June 20th to 23rd, virtually. This is the annual gathering of Unitarian Universalists where we conduct business of the association, explore the theological underpinnings of our faith, and lean fully into our mission and principles. If you are a member and would like to be a delegate, please contact Victoria Bowen. Third, a word about Reverend Marcus's installation ceremony. It's 14 days away. That's only 2 Sundays from now. April 21st at 2:30 p.m. All are welcome. Remember to RSVP. You can do that online or stop by our table after service. The ceremony will also be live streamed, and it will be followed by a wonderful party. Fourth, and finally, in support of GRIP's necessary work, we are collecting new packaged underwear, socks, bras, camisoles, or pajamas for men, women, and children. You can place them in the collection bin in the atrium through the month of April. And now for a tiny bit of comic relief after all those announcements, I'd like to invite Rich Hanway to the lectern.
I'm not wearing underwear today. No, I'm not wearing underwear today. Not that I really care much about my underwear. Still, nonetheless, I have to say, underwear today. Oh, thank you.
Okay, if you can if you can change gears here, please rise in body or spirit and join in singing our closing song, When Our Heart is in a Holy Place, 2008 in the Teal hymnal. The words will be on the screen.
A holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we trust the wisdom in each of us, every color, every creed and kind, and we see our faces in each other's eyes, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we tell our story from deep inside, and we listen with a loving mind, and we hear our voices in each other's words, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we share the silence of sacred space, and the glow of our heart stirs within, and we feel the power of each other's faith, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place.
Let's reach out or grab the hand of someone next to you, reminding us of our interconnection with each other and the strength of this community. 40,000 years ago, humans realized they needed music, art, and they needed religion to understand life's most challenging questions. And we still are struggling with those questions today. Let the struggle be one that brings us together. Let us bring humility and engagement as we learn about other religions, as we learn about the beliefs of those among us. And let love always be the wellspring, the source, and the energy that we offer to this hurting world. Blessed be.